Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Looking at our agenda, first thing is norms.
Okay, I'll read those.
Okay.
So team norms, we will come prepared with our computer and materials. We will have a positive attitude. We will be focused on student data. Our work will be purposeful. We will participate in active collaboration, and we will be willing to pivot.
Okay. Number 2 in the agenda for essential questions.
Okay. What do we expect all students to know and be able to do? How do we know when they have learned it? How do we respond when they don't learn? And 4, how do we respond when they already know it?
Okay. And moving on, next thing in the agenda, let's talk about our RTI
Behavior cards?
behavior cards. Who wants to go first?
I will put the timer on for 5 minutes.
Okay.
James,
You wanna go
do you want
first?
to begin?
Sure, I can begin first. As far as with behavior in class, did you start the timer?
It's timer on.
Okay, so one student that I have concern for in my classroom is student number 8. He's had things kind of throughout the year. He's had moments of improvement. But last few weeks or so, he seems to be a bit more just kind of everywhere in both his attitude and his actions. And I feel like I've been having to get onto him constantly. Kind of like what you were telling me the other day.
Yes.
I think it was, what was it, ELD that
During
morning?
Intervention and
Intervention, yes. And so, I just kind of keeping with him on a regular basis. It's just kind of interesting how sudden that change was to where it became a lot more drastic. And so I've been working with him. I talk with him a lot directly, kind of like today. I talked with him too, and I sent him over to talk with you. Yeah. And I'm hoping those kind of approaches will help him more kind of take a little bit more responsibility in his actions. And so it's just kind of adapting and learning how to deal, or kind of approach him, especially I imagine as the year continues and gets closer to an end, it's going to be kind of a mishmash of what I'm going to see. So do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I was wondering, I talked to him and I just asked him like, hey, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And he told me some things are going on at home. Did he mention that to you?
He hasn't mentioned stuff at home, but I do know with Mom, sometimes it's a bit tough, sometimes is the word I would use.
Well, he told me it was parents, he thinks that parents are going to get separated.
Okay.
And so I was thinking maybe Lori would be his mechanics would be the person to talk to. He said at first he didn't want to talk about it. I told him that he can talk to me anytime, and he told me that was going on at home, and so I was like, okay. I talked to him a little bit about personally, like it's happened to me, and so he made that connection with me about it, and so I was able to like get him a little bit more calm about it. And we talked it out loud, and so he felt better afterwards.
That's good. No, that's good. He has not mentioned to me about anything at home, but when he kind of acts out and stuff like that in class, I do kind of suspect there's something a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
and knowing that, I'll definitely make sure to bring that up with Lori.
So then next steps. Next steps is for him to talk with the counselor. Okay.
I'll talk with him a bit directly too, just to kind of see what he would be comfortable telling me, and then whatever he can share with me, I'll talk with him about as well. But then direct it to Lori as well, so then she can have a more professional approach with it.
Does he have an assigned mentor?
Yes, he does.
Maybe let her know.
Yes, I'll let
She
her.
could probably help
I'll
with
let
that
them
too.
know too. Yep. All right, that sounds great. And then the other one is actually kind of more of a positive, and that's actually going to be student number 28. So student number 28, he had big motivation challenges throughout the year, and a lot of stuff going on at home where there's not a lot of consistency. I remember talking with Mom during parent-teacher conferences, and just it didn't sound like there was a lot of structure as far as when he was home, bedtime, stuff like that. He'd come in, be really tired a lot lately. And so about 2 weeks ago, he'd gotten tired, and beforehand I would send him to the nurse to kind of help wake him up in the morning. But finally, I just was like, look, what I want you to try to do tonight is go home, and I want you to go to bed 8 o'clock and see what that does. And he went home and came back that next day and looked completely refreshed, stayed awake, and really participated throughout the day.
And this is when you just
I
had
just
a conversation?
Yeah, I just pulled him aside and said, I've noticed you've been very tired, and it's like, what time do you go to bed? Which he said something about 10:30 or so, which seems to be pretty consistent with a lot of the kids we have in fifth grade.
I agree. I have some of those
And
as well.
but I've noticed an overall improvement in his motivation now. He doesn't seem as tired. And it's just nice to know too that he's like, you know what, I will try to go to bed at this time. And because of that too, I mean, with recent CFAs that we've given, his effort's been a lot better. And even though if he hasn't made proficient, he's been a lot closer to proficient than at other points throughout the year. So it's been exciting to see that.
Is there any other ones?
No, those were my big two.
Just one last thing for number 28. So then, has he been consistent? You haven't seen him fall back?
Yes, he's like these last 2 weeks. He's been ever since he came that one day, really refreshed. He's been very consistent. I haven't had any issues with him being tired or not actively participating throughout the day.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. I can go next.
Okay, I'll record for you.
I look the time.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So my number 19. So recently she moved. She was in our school district, but she recently moved across town. So lately, I've noticed that she's been absent a lot, and so that also has been affecting her behavior because she was on a good pathway, and as she's been missing a lot, she kind of like has her effort. She has no effort. Like she'll have her head down during the whole lesson,
Yes.
and I have to remind her constantly. And so I changed her seating charts because she did mention to me that she hated sitting in the front, and I had like a whole show in class about that. And so I sat her where she wants because I know that will, give her a
Motivate
little
her.
bit motivation. Yeah. Because whenever she gets her way, she does have more motivation.
Yeah.
And
And it's finding that balance, right?
yes, it's finding that balance, and and I don't have any problem with her sitting in the back. It's just I'm gonna make sure that she's focused, and so just sitting her in the back, especially today, she was gone a couple of days, and today just that effort is not there. And I did remind her, I'm like, I set you where you would like, I need a little bit more back from you to work with me together, and so she did remember that. She was like instantly like, okay. And so I did get a behavior plan for her yesterday, and so I'm going to be looking more into like when things like that happen, like what can I do in the classroom, and then just if you guys can help me also in the hallway to remind her to
Yes.
do her best.
And where she's sitting down right now, is she sitting with students that are good role models?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I have students that are good role models around her.
Okay.
She's actually in a group of 3 compared to the rest of my students,
Uh-huh.
and so I do feel like the students that she's around.
And have you noticed a difference?
Today,
A positive difference?
well, today actually I noticed a negative difference. One of my students that usually always follows the rules in class just talking like while I was doing my lesson, and so I understand that like she's excited about where she was sitting, but that's when I pointed out, I'm like, you're sitting where where you, and if you're not acting like you need to, then you're gonna go back to the front of the room.
And what did she respond?
And so she instantly got up and she participated. So
Okay.
so that's that student. So just my next steps are just gonna keep reminding her and work on that behavior plan that they shared with me so that I can work with her. Is there any other suggestions that you guys?
It makes me think a little bit of what you had shared with us, Sylvia. I think it was like a few weeks ago. Is having students maybe place.
Commitment statements.
Oh, and I did do that. Actually.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Okay.
I actually started that on Monday on our SEO lesson, and they all were really excited about it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what is her commitment statement?
Her commitment statement. That's a good question. She actually said that she was gonna be kinder.
Okay. Okay. So maybe
Add something else to that commitment.
Yeah.
See what she can come up with to help her with her behavior plan.
And if she does do her commitment during the week, and maybe give her something that like a reward for it.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yes, but I think it's a great idea. Have that commitment, and if she's doing a great job, okay, let's talk and let's work on something else.
Okay.
Have it visible for.
Student 19 always strikes me as somebody that she really just needs a lot of accountability.
Yeah.
To like, if you're very direct with her and as
Yeah,
far
and
as
I
what
did
you
try to
observe, I think she tends to respect that a lot. Which I mean, you are. I've just noticed it too from my personal
Yeah.
discussions with her and stuff too. So I think anything that you can do that keeps fostering that accountability, like the commitment statements, but then also too the consequences. Hey, I've moved you because you said you didn't like being up in the front, but now this is happening. Like, we can't have this. I do think she takes that into account, and
I agree with you.
I think that's what's going to really help her further as far as just kind of her attitude.
Yeah, I agree. And she's been working well in GT with that transition because she did go into it at the end of the year. She has been working good in that transition. So
Good.
I want to keep giving her incentives for her to keep acting.
Yes.
Okay, and one of my last student, number 16. Number 16, she, this week, she got really irritated in class. I was working with a small group in the back, and there was they were working on math, and she was just talking out loud, solving her problem, and she realized that she made a mistake, and she was saying it out loud while two other boys were sitting in front of her, and they were laughing. They weren't on task, but they were laughing, and she thought that they were laughing at her. And so she got irritated and instantly like went off on him in front of everybody and told him to be quiet, but not in a nice way. And so and then it brought the whole class to a whole another level.
Yes.
And so I put them apart and I talked to them, and so she said that she responds that way because we talked about how we respond in class and about what she could have said, and it was a whole misunderstanding. Like the student wasn't laughing at her; they were just talking to their buddy.
Yes.
And so I talked about, if we could have asked like, "Why are you laughing?" Then maybe that wouldn't have happened, and just like making sure that we have patience and we take a deep breath and we ask like, what is going on, what's happening, and so.
And what did the students say?
And so she said she has trouble reacting in a different way because at home that's the way her siblings react to her. Like they don't tell her to be quiet in a nice way, so she feels like she can't act in a different way. So we really talked about, yes, I can, like having that mindset that I can do it. And I talked to her about that. She was really upset that day. And I did talk to Miss McGinnis and like to give her some strategies to maybe take in place, but that was a big thing this week.
Okay. And was that this week when
Yeah.
you talked to Miss McGinnis?
Yeah, that happened this week, and I instantly told Ms. McGinnis.
Okay.
So she did talk with her.
Now, I know the timer ran out. We need to get to Sonia. No, but that's okay. But I was just going to ask about the student. It sounds like there's kind of an insecurity there. I mean, how has student 16 seemed kind of throughout the year in regards to kind of their self-esteem? Out of curiosity.
I mean, it is, she does have a good confidence, but the only is when it comes to being around other students, I guess it can get a little bit like insecure.
Okay.
But that's mostly whenever it's only like public speaking.
Okay.
Maybe
Also, she was having like a rough morning and she was tired, so that has also affected her as well.
Okay.
maybe we could also teach her like how to respond when something happens. Like maybe give her some sentence frames or something that she can get used to using, and that can be a reminder for her to bring herself back in.
Yeah.
and help her.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't know how to address how they're feeling to others.
Yeah,
and if
I
we
agree.
help them with that, then
Yeah, and
I was thinking the same thing, and I almost feel like that's definitely something that we can all talk with our students. And I was thinking like maybe some role play,
Yes.
and then that way everybody practices
I like that. I like that
a
idea.
little bit of role play.
We can work on that for our SEL lessons.
Okay.
Okay. Sonia, let me know when you're ready.
Yes.
No, I'll take that.
I'm taking notes for Sonia.
Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, I'm going to start with my number 23. And this is the student that I've talked throughout this school year that he continues falls into that same cycle. And like I've said before, ever since I've had that parent-teacher conference, physical parent-teacher conference with Mom, it's been great. He still sometimes falls back to that cycle, but it's not as, it's like he takes 1, maybe 2 steps back instead of taking 5, 10 steps back. And so this student I usually have always standing up front in line. And so I am ready to try to give him that extra flexibility to stand wherever he would like when we line up. So that's my next steps with number 23.
Okay, and I've also noticed improvements because I know he's with the walkers and stuff at the end of the day. Like I've just noticed his attitude is toward at the end of the day and stuff is always really. He's a lot more. I guess the word I would use is chipper.
Yes.
Like I'll ask him about, you know, it's like, how did your day go? And he'll always be like, oh, it was good, you know. And he just has a nice comfort with him. And I'm actually his mentor, so you know, that's kind of my way of checking in with him and stuff too. And I'm actually thinking about doing stuff too during like lunch or something where he can have lunch with me and we can just kind of talk and I can check with him then as well.
That sounds great.
That's something I was talking with him about last week. So.
Okay, I'll write that down. And what day works for you?
I mentioned to him about Thursday. I'll see how he
Thursday.
kind of feels. Yeah, I was going to try Thursday this week and see how he felt about that and just kind of go from there.
Okay.
I think that will be good
I
for
like
him.
it.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect.
And you'll enjoy having lunch with the teachers.
Yeah. Okay, and then my next student is number 13. This is a student that beginning of the school year was absent quite frequently, and she's doing a much better job now, but she has a hard time staying on task. And it's been pretty hard getting a hold of parents. This is the same student that I had mentioned where Mom said she was going to call me every Friday because parents, they don't have a phone number. And unfortunately, Mom hasn't reached me every Friday. And I have already emailed Ms. Mulligan and Ms. Peterson, so they're helping me with that. And so they're contacting parents. And one more thing that I want to make sure to share, and I'm going to also send an extra email to Ms. Mulligan, Ms. Peterson, and it's that I just recently noticed that her neck has these really, really dark spots. And I sent her to the nurse, and I had no idea what it was. And the nurse informed me that it seems like she might be borderline diabetes or maybe suffering from obesity. So, yeah, definitely she needs extra support. Yeah, so it's just one more issue. Now it's health.
So contacting those parents is extremely important now.
Yes, because now it's not only academic behavior, now it's also health concerns.
Based on because it's health, would it be you that would contact her or would Nurse Morgan?
The thing is that we're having trouble contacting them because they
general.
have no phone number.
So probably have to be like a home visit.
Yeah.
A home visit probably.
But Nurse Morgan did send paperwork informing parents about his health situation. So, yeah.
You have another student?
One more. He is my number 20. He is my newest student. He's my student that I described last time as he has a really big personality.
Yes.
Yes.
I saw that the other day.
Yes.
I was in there. Yes, he does.
Right?
And he's just a great student, and He just, he's very playful. And he loves having everyone's attention. And so I would like help with what would be, I've already talked to him, what would be the next steps in order to help him be more part of the group and more focused on what we're learning.
So I think maybe commitment statements again for him.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
You
you may
know,
be right.
Just make sure that he's seeing those and he can refer back to those. Maybe you have like a special signal that he knows to look at that, and that will remind him like, okay, I need to settle down a little bit.
Yes.
But if he has it there in front of him where he can see it consistently.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, he just needs to have like some type of friendly reminder.
Right.
Yeah,
And it can be
I
a
agree.
signal that you'll make it between each other. Nobody else has to know. That reminds him.
And knowing student number 20, because he's in my ELD group, I definitely get that impression
Big
from you too,
personality,
just
right?
Really big
Yeah.
personality, really sweet kid.
Yeah, he is.
And what I'm interested in, so it does seem like he really likes attention as well. So I'm wondering if there's some way you could do it where there's like a positive kind of reinforcement with that. I mean, it's always kind of tricky to do, but
Yeah.
just some way is kind of like, I mean, because it depends. I'm not in the classroom, so I don't really see how he gets that attention or tries to. But maybe there's some kind of incentive where it's like, okay, if we can do this and stuff like that.
And
You
he
know.
and he definitely has started
Mhm.
to focus a little bit more,
Okay.
but he still consistently tries
Yeah,
to kind of be the class clown
Mm-hmm.
in order to get those laughs, those extra laughs.
Yeah, and so it's just, I mean, I would just be kind of curious to see what we could provide for him in a positive way, like along with the commitment statements, that just kind of, as incentives too, where it's
Yeah.
like, refer back to your commitment statement, and then, if we do this work and stuff like that. Like I've dealt more with kids who like to tell jokes, and so sometimes you like to give them that little period of where they can just go up and tell a joke real quick or something like that. Granted, I don't know.
Maybe like on Friday or something.
Yeah,
That can be
yeah.
like a reward. You
Yeah,
get to
something like
something
that.
that he likes.
You get like
yes, I
2
can-
minutes. You get 2 minutes to come up and share something or something like that, where it kind of gives him that attention, but in a positive way.
Yes, I can definitely see him enjoying that. Okay, let's go ahead and if we can go back to the agenda.
Sure.
We have
And-
15 minutes till 2.
How many minutes?
15 till 2 o'clock.
15 till 2 o'clock. Thank you. Let's go ahead and go with our reading protocol.
Sure thing.
So this last time we did a reading CFA. And the reading CFA was on.
The reading CFA was on, so the standard that we're working on right now is RI 5.5, which involves text structures, comparing and contrasting, and just knowing kind of the difference between them, identifying them, and being able to answer questions in relation to them. And so these were just the results from our last CFA we gave last week.
And then just based on our teach and assess cycle, we are on the bottom
Mm-hmm.
right here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Analyze formative assessment results, provide mid-unit interventions, and continue or complete core instruction.
Yeah. So we see what misconceptions and where our students are kind of struggling with certain tasks, and then we're going to just see what we need to do to go back and
Introduce those.
reteach as necessary and improve and build on what they know and address those misconceptions as they arise. So do we want to look at the spreadsheet? Okay, let's look at the spreadsheet. So in regards to the CFA, again, it was kind of a multitude of questions that also involved text structure. And we identified, down at the bottom, the kinds of questions that were asked on it. For instance, question 1 involved sequencing or chronology. 2 through 4 involved text details that were in the text. Question 5 was a direct question on text structures, what they could identify. And question 6 focused on context clues from the text. What could the kids infer? And I think consistently between us, like the majority of the kids missed question 1 and 5. Those were the 2 most missed questions I had as well.
And I also had question 6 missed.
Okay.
good portion.
Okay. And so, from that information, we obviously see we need to work a bit more with the, talking about sequencing and focusing on text structures. Though, what I noticed in relation to my CFA results, I noticed that for the sequencing question, so the passage was on the hawkbills, sea turtles.
Can we
Yes.
stop for a second?
Sure thing.
Do we want to stay with looking at the spreadsheet, or do we want to go now back to the protocol?
I mean, how do we feel?
I guess let's go to the protocol.
Sure thing, we'll do that.
And as we go back to the protocol,
We'll talk about those
I-
for our steps.
yes, and before we start our protocol, I do want to
Mhm.
tell my team that I unfortunately did analyze and look at my data, but I did not have time to type everything up.
Okay.
So that is my mistake. Can you please go ahead and read the first part, step 1?
Sure thing. So step 1 goes over the just the data from the spreadsheet that we have. And if you look at it, you see our numbers. Both Ms. Ponce and myself are at percent at proficiency. We're pretty similar. But consistent, the numbers do seem to be pretty consistent as far as
Yes.
we're about in
And
that
Ms.
50,
Alvarado
almost
is
60%
not that
range.
behind.
No, we're catching up. We're all kind of
Yes,
getting
we're
to
all
that
catching
same point, which is nice to see. That
Yeah,
means
it
that means
is.
we're being.
I feel like this one was the most consistent between
Yes,
the two of us.
I feel like
and
that
reading.
too.
Yes, it was.
And this was the first one that we tried actually doing as a
On a-
Google.
on a Google.
It's a Google
Oh,
form.
that's
That's
right.
what we
That
did.
was the
Yeah,
difference
I do.
between this one and the
I do
other.
think
We tried this one
I
as a
did want
Google
to
form.
mention
Okay.
something that I think I want for next time
Mhm.
is I know how that we had that link in there,
Mhm.
but I think something I want to do for my students just because
Just
we've
put the
been
passage in there.
practicing, put the passage on their Google Classroom as
Mhm.
well,
Okay.
because a lot of my students are used to highlighting and going
Yeah.
back,
Yes.
and
no.
that was another thing that they were like whenever we did discuss
Mhm.
it, they're like, yeah, we couldn't do it and we wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something my
No.
students would
And
like.
I was.
And you're right.
I was thinking
you're
about
right, because
that.
we've done that before.
I was thinking about that with it. I mean, I just linked it in there because you had mentioned like fourth grade's example where they had linked the passage
Yeah.
in there, and so
Right.
that's why we did it for this last one. But I was thinking that too after because I realized like they couldn't highlight
Yeah,
on
they
it and
couldn't
stuff too, and I
highlight.
was like,
And they
you
also
know.
got distracted with the little icons of who was on there at
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
time.
Okay,
Which
how,
is okay,
actually a lot of
but-
mine didn't worry about that.
can
too
we
much.
stop for a second?
Sure
Let's go
thing.
ahead and
Let's
go
go back.
And so for step 1, it says how many students were below proficiency, at proficiency, and above proficiency.
Mhm.
And so we did, and then for the below proficiency, we have Miss Alvarado, 54, Mr. Cooper, 42, myself, 44. Step 2, did any teacher have significantly better results than the other teachers? If so, consider using the instructional strategy this teacher used in the planned intervention.
Mhm.
And that was definitely Mr. Cooper with a
Okay.
58%.
Which I had mentioned too that Ms. Ponce's and my scores were very similar. Mine was just 2% higher. And as far as instructional strategies, I mean, I've just really, and I've said this, in a couple other meetings as well, where I really pushed the gradual release of responsibility. I build up background knowledge as necessary for passages, and I tend to do that more with just passages that we do in class as practice. And then, because then that tells me really who has what we've practiced in class, who has those skills, who doesn't, who struggles with them. You might have some kids who are very hesitant to implement them that maybe just need a little bit extra support, and it lets me identify that. And with my scores, even though we're not at that 80% proficiency in the class, though, it really has helped me also narrow down. It's like, okay, these are kids I need to pull in a small group and just keep reinforcing those skills. And I think that's really helped kind of the kids take on that step of this is what I'm expected to do,
Yes.
and be a lot more comfortable and confident with it.
Ms. Alvarado, did you have anything to add?
I did from step 3.
Okay, let's go with
Okay.
So
let's
step
go
3
with
look at the students who did not meet proficiency. If possible, create a hypothesis about why they may not have reached expectations. Is there a deficient in prerequisite skills? Are students concrete thinkers trying to learn an abstract concept? Do students need additional vocabulary instruction? So I put in there, I believe students who did not meet proficient on the assessment consistently missed questions 1, 4, and 6 on the CFA form. Many students struggled on question 1 involving sequencing because they explained the story did not use the word immediately.
Yes.
So they were confused on which answer to choose. I did talk to my students about it, and a lot of them were like, well, I was confused because it didn't use that word in the text. And so we discussed on keywords. How could we have inferred which step would have been the best one? And then question 5 focuses on text structures within the text. And the students who missed this question weren't familiar with the actual term text structures. And so they were definitely like a little like, what does that mean? And so we just talked about how, even though we don't know what that word technically means, we can still, based on our multiple choice questions, we can still, like I believe you put in there, they can focus on the last 2 paragraphs, because that's what the question asks, like what text structure do the last 2 paragraphs have?
Yes.
So I feel like they didn't go, just because they didn't know that word, they didn't go back to the text and double check, well, what was that those 2 paragraphs talking about? So we did talk about how we need to make sure to go back in the text and do that. And so that's why I feel like they missed that question as well.
And our students have been pretty honest with that.
Yeah, they have.
Where they're honest and they say, I didn't know when I took.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the time they just get stuck on I don't know, and
they'll freeze.
Yeah, keep pushing them, like have that G. What do you call it? GRR.
No, the gradual release of responsibility.
And then while only a few of my students missed question 6, I mean that question like would have bumped them up like another proficiency level. So I really, the students, they didn't go back to the text to use the context clues to answer the question. And that was the word devour.
Yeah, that was the word devour.
Because when we talked about it in class, they knew what it meant, but I just feel like they got a little like,
just because they know what it means too.
Yeah,
Like that,
no, you're right.
that's
What
what I
they
love
actually
about
do.
those kind of questions, because they may know what it means outside of the text,
Yeah, no,
but
you're
sometimes,
right.
granted devour does have just kind of that one definition, but lots of times too, they may know a word kind of a little bit differently outside of a text versus the context of the text.
nah, yeah, you're right.
So, it kind of challenges
Pushes
as
their
far as what they
vocabulary.
know.
Would it help if you pick one question? If you want, I can read the question.
What do you mean? Sorry.
We can I can
Kinda
read the specific
to get
question
some context.
just to get
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
of
some,
course.
a little bit. Which one would you like to go over
From
the questions that your students missed?
question 5.
Question 5. That's the one that my
I feel like
students missed
all
too.
of us, our students missed.
I had
that
a
one.
lot of kids missed it. Well, and I was going to
For me, it
had
was
a-
1 and 5.
I had 11 kids.
It was 1 and 5 for
1
me
and
as
5.
well. And I was actually going to piggyback real quick
Oh,
off
yeah.
of what Ariana was saying in regards to because question 1 and 5 were the ones that my kids had missed the most. And it was very similar, like immediately in question 1, just that term
Just
there.
that one.
Lots of kids were thinking of the main idea of that first part, where it was about sea turtles, and ultimately the mother goes back after she lays her eggs. She goes back into the ocean. So lots of kids were like, "Oh, well, she abandons the eggs." But what she does immediately after laying them is she buries them in sand.
Buries them in sand.
So they were kind of focusing too much on the main idea, not immediately what happens after.
I agree.
And
That specific detail.
and then for question 5, it was the same thing, where lots of kids who missed it told me it was cause and effect,
Yes.
when it was actually problem and solution, and it was focusing on those last 2 paragraphs. And in cause and effect and problem and solution, there's always kind of a little bit of an overlap there too, which is it's a general misconception. But with those misconceptions, the class was actually very consistent in regards to that, where if the kids weren't telling me it was problem and solution, they were telling me it was cause and effect. So
Since
but
they're
yeah.
having a problem with those 2, if we look at our teach assess cycle,
Yeah.
what would you do to go back and reteach it? Like, what would you?
For me, the first thing that came to mind is I think the times that we focused on any of these, we've just focused on one.
Yes.
And we refer to the definition just on that one. But we have, at least I have not placed all of these, display all
I
of
agree.
them.
Me too.
And then that way students are always referring back to all of them. And as we're reading our book as a classroom, or as we're reading any other text, we can refer to all of them again. And students are able to make that connection. No, we're using now cause and effect, and this is the reason why. Or no, this is sequence, and this is the reason why. Instead of just one at a time.
And you're thinking about
displaying all of them.
And you're thinking about tying that in kind of like with your read aloud and stuff too.
Yeah,
in the
I was
classroom.
actually
I like
saying
that. I
that
like
would
that
be-
idea
Yes.
a lot, because lots of times when we do like text structures, lots of times when we do text structures and we practice them, it is kind of a one at a time. It's like this
Yes.
specifically focuses on chronology. This focuses on compare and contrast.
Yes.
So yeah, it is. It's much more specific. Whereas when you're actually reading a text, you're going to have several different text structures in it at once.
Exactly.
So-
And I think students need that. They
Mhm.
they need to start going back and forth. Okay, after reading these 2 pages, these are talking about we can compare and contrast. Now moving on to the next chapter, this definitely is more problem solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Have
No,
a good
I-
anchor chart
I-
where
I-
they can
I-
refer
For
back
all
to.
of them.
I like that. I had that
I
idea of
completely
connecting it
agree
back
with
to our
that.
reading as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then you're building that knowledge, you're building that awareness, and if the kids can have that awareness and then keep practicing it, then that's what we want. We want them to
Yeah.
get there.
And they've had this in previous years.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
just now putting it all together.
Yes. That's,
And actually, 4th grade is doing
Yes.
those searches right now.
Yep.
So,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
That
So it's a
Right.
good.
it's a good
sequence,
vertical.
so-
Yes, good vertical alignment.
Yep.
Sonia, did you have anything to add with step 3?
For step 3, well, mine was the same as yours, where my 2 big struggles were question number 1 and question number 5. After that, it was question number 2,
Okay.
which was how do red lights help sea turtles?
That one was missed a little bit too in my class as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And the answer was the red lights emit less visible light. And my students picked the last one, which was people set up red lights on the beach to help female sea turtles identify the safest place.
No,
Which is not what the text
Yeah,
said
that's
at
funny
all.
because
Mhm.
my second choice for my students was the first one.
Oh, was it the first one?
Yeah, people set up lights in a line, and then the hatchlings follow the red lights from their nest to the
To the
beach.
beach.
So that has a lot to do with like close reading and
Yeah,
important
close reading.
details and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you
Is there
ready for
anything you want to add?
No. Are we ready for the
Step 4?
Step 4?
Sure thing. I'll read this one. So step 4, using the hypothesis about students, plan how to reteach the learning target. Decide how to group students so that those who were proficient get enrichment and those who weren't get extra time and support. So I had just talked about, the students would be grouped based on our proficiency levels back on the spreadsheet, how we want to how we're going to look to push them and stuff like that. I had mentioned that those that were close to proficiency, because we want to really focus on those that, we really want to focus on our bubble students, or
Yes.
our students who are not just just barely below proficient, but also those that are barely above proficient. Those are the ones we want to focus on. Just to make sure that they are consistently improving on that. We don't want them to accidentally fall under proficient. And with those ones, a lot of those kids that were just below or barely above were the ones that really struggled with questions 1 and question 5, which I addressed, those were misconceptions that would be addressed. And those were the kind of misconceptions, text structures and stuff could be addressed really quickly in terms of, because most of them were thinking cause and effect. That could be a lesson or 2 where we talk about the difference between cause and effect and problem and solution. So that could be a really quick kind of revisit, retouch it up, make sure we understand those differences. And then as far as question 1, just really making sure we pay attention, what does immediately mean in this question? And that would be some ways to, just help move those students along. And then, of course, the students who struggled a bit more, you do a small group, you chunk the passage up a little bit more for them and just take it step by step and keep practicing those skills that you're working on.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it almost feels like, we've been doing this,
Mhm.
and it just feels like every time we go through the cycle again, just
Mhm.
kids get just a little better
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
at
agree.
each of them.
Mhm.
I feel like there's been an overall improvement in confidence.
Yes.
I do feel like it's just now more of the application and practice part of it. Just
Yeah, and we
keep
definitely
pushing it.
saw that with these results.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. I feel like all of us have less students in the below and far below
Mhm.
proficiency levels.
Yes, and I'm
And
not
so-
sure if maybe another reason might be because we use a little bit more technology. I'm not sure if that helped.
I was actually wondering the
Do
same
you
thing.
think?
I mean,
Because it was the first time that we had our
We used the
CFA
form.
paperless,
Yeah.
and it was
Mhm.
that Google form.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that had to do something.
Well, you can try it again and see.
and try to
How
see if we get the
paper?
same
Yeah.
same results.
No, the form.
Oh, the Google form? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
You keep trying that and see if that, because they probably like that and they're going to be tested on the
Mhm.
computer anyway, so you want to make sure you're getting
Yes,
enough
they
practice
will.
Yeah,
anyway.
a lot of them
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So would our next step be creating our groups as a grade level and that tier 3,
Our tier 2 groups.
our tier 2 groups?
Mhm.
Yeah, tier 2 groups.
Yes, our tier 2 groups. But I would also like to ask as far as enrichment, because we
Yes,
really do
that's
want to be
good.
providing that enrichment for the students,
Uh-huh.
and just thinking of what that could look like.
Well, in our proficiency levels, we have them, and back in our, if you go back to our protocol, it says extension providing 5th grade level text and working on.
Are we ready to talk about that? Are we done?
I think
Are
I think we
done
just
with
had.
protocol, reading protocol?
I think we just had step 6 and step 7, which step 6 was just talking about the tier 2 intervention groups, which obviously I would take the students that need to work on the skills
Yes,
the
we would take
most.
those students.
And then we would just split the rest between you two as far
Us.
as just who needs more reinforcements in particular with certain skills. And then just step 7, how we assess them, we would do a similar assessment involving
And it would definitely look like
Similarities.
it definitely will look like a tier 2 because it's less students.
Mhm.
Yes.
So we'll
Yes.
be able to really target their needs.
Yes,
Kind of like what we did
definitely.
with main idea.
Yes,
Yes.
and that was along tier 2.
And you didn't write it on here, but you did talk about step 5, about the what you-
New
the new
instructional
strategies.
strategies. Yes.
So, like one of the new ones that you did was having them use technology.
Yes.
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 And then now
Yeah, go ahead and put that in there.
continue that.
I think with step 5, it always says best practice literature. Like that's why I think lots of times we're like, does that go in the protocol? But
Yeah.
no, I mean, we're always talking about those new strategies. One question I did have in regards to the Google Forms,
Mhm.
I know you also have the option of showing the students the results right away after they turn it in. We didn't do that on this last one. What are your thoughts on that?
That's up to you. I mean, if you want
Okay.
them to see the results, the only thing is if they have to open response,
Mhm.
then
It
you'll
doesn't-
have-
yeah,
it won't
it
be able
doesn't
to grade
grade it
that
right
for you,
away,
but
yeah.
you can have them see the others if you want them to.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just
That's
kind of
up
on
to
the
you.
I'm kind of on the fence, like in regards to that, because I just feel like this information is very important for us. I mean, this is for us to plan that instruction for them, but sometimes I feel like it'd be good for the students to know too, get that feedback, just be like, oh, wait a minute, I thought it was this. Like then they can start kind of addressing misconceptions right when they see that. Like, why did I miss this?
I do believe because whenever we discussed it as a class, they were like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I knew
go ahead and
that. I
make
knew
some
that.
more
I just
aware
didn't
to
put
it.
that. I wasn't sure." So I do believe giving them the actual scores. Maybe I don't know about immediately. That's something
Yeah, that
Just
would be
because
my.
other students are taking it at the same time and they don't finish at the same
Well,
time.
and then I would be worried. The only concerns I know I have some students in my class where if they saw their scores
Yeah, they
early and if they didn't score what they thought they had
Mhm.
scored,
They
it
would
may
be upset.
it may be a bit of a detriment to their
Yeah,
their
confidence.
attitude
Mhm.
kind of throughout the rest of the day. And also too, I could easily see a student missing a question they thought he got right and kind of immediately going like, Mr. Cooper, why did I miss this question? When it's
Yeah.
like everyone else is still taking the test. I need you.
Yeah,
I need you
I
to wait.
agree.
So it sounds like maybe not a good idea.
Yeah,
Not
it's a
immediately,
trade-off.
but afterwards.
It's a trade-off for sure.
Yeah. But you are
It's
right,
like-
you can
but
set
they-
it up that way.
But they can, you can release the scores afterwards, right?
Yes,
'Cause I
yes,
did
you can
see
you
that
can
on
release
there.
them. You can release them afterwards. I would, I think it would be nice for us to kind of discuss how we'd like to do it, just so then that way, we're just because I want to be transparent with my kids as well too. And I am transparent. Like, I talk about results as far as the percentages. It's like, oh, we didn't quite meet our 80%, stuff like that, and I like to communicate that with them a lot. And so it just, just those other ways. How can we be more consistent as far as communicating that to them and kind of getting them on board too with
Okay, do we
improving.
want to decide right now, or do you want to agree when we would like to share results?
Sure, consensus. All right. So what are our ideas as far as sharing results?
I would like to share them, but not, like you said, not at the moment. Like maybe a day or two afterwards.
Maybe how about we do a CFA, we do the Google form, we look at the results together as a team, we discuss those results, and then the next day we share it with them.
Okay, so
Would that be
usually our
something?
CFAs are
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday,
Friday.
Friday.
So maybe if we push our CFAs more to just Thursday, then that gives us Friday to discuss it with the students.
You don't want to wait too long because
Yes.
they need
Or
that.
they need it
Yeah.
in 2 or 3
And,
days.
and unfortunately, we have that
Feedback.
weirdness where the weekend's right
weekend.
there, and
Yeah, so do we want to say then share Friday or Monday? Monday, the following week.
I like sharing Friday
Friday.
because that would be a
Still
great way to
fresh.
kind of review. It's still fresh, and it's kind of a great way to kind of review the entire week because chances are what they're being assessed on is kind of what the skills that we've practiced.
The only thing would be that's only if we give the CFA
on Thursday.
on Thursday.
Yes.
Because sometimes schedule happens
Scheduling is
and
weird.
we change the
Mhm.
CFA to Friday, so we wouldn't be able to do that.
I guess on a worst case scenario, if we did have to give a CFA on Friday, then we could push it to we could do it Monday.
Monday.
Or and that, because that's just kind of unfortunately how we would have to adjust.
Mhm.
So
So everyone agrees then?
Yeah.
Friday or Monday?
Consensus.
Yeah.
consensus.
Consensus.
Okay. I like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
So that will be our plan.
Okay.
Um,
So do we want to talk about our tier 3 or
Tier
what
2?
is- oh yeah, tier
Tier
2.
Yes,
Sorry,
that's
tier 2 or what's next on our agenda?
We want to stick with our agenda
Yeah,
first,
stick with our
and
agenda.
then go back to tier
Yeah,
2.
I think that's a great idea because they do
They do go together.
go together.
Yeah.
But I think we decided that we were going to focus for the proficiency levels on math.
Math.
On math.
Oh, you're right.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes, and it is 2:10. We have about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So
15.
I was saying 2:10 for our ending meeting. 2:20.
are we going to the math spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think it's linked on the agenda.
No, and it shouldn't because for this one, this is an old a little bit older spreadsheet.
This was a data protocol. This was the one from last week that we were going to discuss and
Gonna
everything.
finish.
And so this week we were going to talk about, we hadn't had a chance to finish up those proficiency levels on it. And that was kind of something that we wanted to kind of add into this CTM today to kind of just get that done.
Okay, can you
So-
share it with me so I can pull it up?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
We haven't had a chance though to also go over the names and stuff for it. So that's our concern. Because originally, we were going to talk about our reading data. So the reading data protocol was the focus for the CTM, but we thought just to add that task of getting the math one done as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me see.
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's talk about it and
Okay.
I'll look off of Ariana's computer.
Okay. So let's. So all we were wanting to do was we had not added.
I think it was the beginning.
I can just.
Yes, we had not added the beginning part because Sonia had her RTI book involving
The proficiency.
the proficiency levels and
So I
what those
can just
tasks
add
look like.
and then you can.
And then
And so
Right.
how about, I'll just do like a really quick summary of the other proficiency levels.
Mhm.
So for the
Just
proficiency,
don't have to
the
cover it.
challenge that is for the students that got the 100%.
Yep.
So these are the students that are above.
Mhm.
And then Sylvia, you helped us with linking the resources that Ms. Schrager had shared with us that are more challenging math questions. And then for our proficient level, we were going to use the same format test that Ms. Alvarado had made, but we just changed the numbers.
Mhm.
And then for close, these students were going to work on the same math sheet, but they were going to work as a group. And their choices were for sure going to be multiple choice.
Mhm.
And in order to make sure that these students move to proficient level, we want them not only to work as a team, but we want them to also to identify, explain, and justify their answers. For emerging, in this group, students will have available anchor charts
Mhm.
on how to add and subtract fractions. And we will provide another anchor chart on different ways to solve multiplication problems, because all of us talked about how our students are still struggling with multiplication.
Multiplication facts are one of our biggest
Yes,
Mhm.
yes it is.
biggest struggles in math right now.
And third grade did share those wonderful strategies that
Yep.
we can,
Mhm.
so we can.
Yep.
So we want to make sure to
Utilize
use
that.
them as our anchor charts. And then we also added the sentence starter justification, the if then so.
Mhm.
And then finally, we're in the beginning, and that was the last piece that we needed.
Mhm.
And so we have the below and the far below.
Mhm.
So for the below, we have students are using some type of graphic organizer,
Mhm.
sentence frames again.
If you can type on Alvarado's, we have it to where we're just looking at that part of it.
Information.
Sure thing. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so below mentions the graphic organizer and sentence stems and structures. So we're trying to think of what that would maybe look like more mathematically.
Yes.
And then looking at far below, it says watch or read, then write, draw, record themselves, provide fifth grade level text. And of course, those are in relation to reading because we had gotten those adjusted for reading. It's just finishing it for math. So I do imagine with beginning, especially if we have students who are struggling with multiplication facts, of course we want to avoid it being procedural. We want to avoid anything where the kids are just memorizing something. We want them to have the concept. So maybe a lot of manipulatives for
Mhm.
beginning.
Yeah,
Use of manipulatives.
I actually practiced that with a small group using those manipulatives because my student was struggling, like for example, taking 15 plus 24. And so as I was watching her doing it procedural, and I was like
Mhm.
trying to get her away from procedural,
Yeah.
using those manipulatives, and those manipulatives definitely helped her come up with the correct answer.
Building-
And her building that knowledge and actually being able to see this is my 10 frames, this is my ones.
Mhm.
That's why this is my answer.
That number sense.
That number sense, yeah.
Because
And
it,
really taking like what they already know.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like if they know fives.
Yes.
And then just teaching them, okay, well, if you're doing six, just add six
Mhm.
more.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
That
actually did that as
conceptualizing,
whole class
yeah.
multiplication.
using what they already know to help them.
Mhm. Well, and that's what I've been doing with
Strategy.
stuff like place value because most all the kids can almost multiply. They can multiply by their tens very easily, and that's place value.
Yeah.
And so when I had kids struggling with that more at the beginning of the year, kind of making that connection really helped them. And so
Those derived facts are so important.
mhm.
Okay.
Just that conceptualizing.
So maybe
So for that far below, how do we want to word that on there?
It's going to be under beginning. So
For the beginning.
Right, use manipulatives.
So the far below, we just added
use
it
many
because I don't
colors.
think, did any of us have any kids that were far below? So we just added it because it was part of our reading.
Oh.
And we were going to just
Kind of
pick,
combine them.
and pick what we thought were the best resources
Mhm.
to help our emergent kids move to progressive.
Okay.
And so everyone mentioned use manipulatives, use what they already know, work on place value.
I would say too, because I know we mentioned outlines in other ones. Maybe also have outlines that help them kind of,
So again, like a graphic organizer.
kind of like a graphic
like a
organizer, like record,
Place value chart.
like kind of like a place value chart would actually be really good, especially if that's where they're struggling. I'm also thinking of like a chart that helps them, if they're solving a problem, like writing, like, okay, I know this number, what am I being asked to do? Kind of gives them that thought process, kind of like a sentence frame.
I actually had one of those. I can share it with
I
you
think
guys.
something like that would really help.
That reminds me of I can't remember if it was the beginning or mid-school year where we were working on math, and Ms. Alvarado shared with us something that she found with Ms. Schrager, and it was all these boxes where kids get to write down each step. So maybe that would be the perfect graphic organizer in order for them to organize their steps.
I think that would
like
be
what
great.
do we know? What is asking us? How do we solve the problem?
Yes.
Our solution.
Because we also want to make sure that they're reading the question and understanding it too.
Yes.
It's like, what is this question asking? If it's asking me for a sum of numbers, what does that mean? Okay, it is almost 2:20.
So did you add graphic organizer on there?
Yes, I did.
She's doing it right now.
Awesome.
And then do we think that this group also needs maybe a video? Maybe a video of us either showing them how to multiply with strategies.
I think so. That would be helpful for them, like
Try a
visual,
video.
Yeah.
as a visual.
It's a visual.
Yeah.
Because that's the area that they struggle the most.
Well, how I would think of that maybe is, obviously you'd pull them and work with them in small group, but then maybe also have a video that reinforces what you do in
Yes,
small
exactly.
group that they can then refer back to and kind of build that skill.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that idea.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. And would that make our proficiency levels complete after that one, or?
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
right.
Yes, we would just need to create that video
Uh-huh.
and then change the numbers in that other practice math sheet. Just change the numbers.
And I even think, in making that video, if we want to use Flipgrid with math, we could. Just watching them, like, how would they use their manipulatives, or maybe explaining or just justifying their answers. I think that would be also.
I think what would be interesting too, like I'd already talked with you guys about like the snowball microphones that I had found.
Oh yes.
And I think it would also be neat to maybe have them do something where maybe they record how they would go through a problem.
Exactly,
Maybe give them
yeah,
like
that's
maybe
it.
give them like a kind of a more general word problem, and have it where they just kind of record. It's like, I read this. This is what I understand. That way they can kind of orally talk
that's
through
it.
it too. I like that idea.
Okay.
Okay, it is 2:21.
All right.
Okay,
So
let's go.
ending meeting to 20.
Thank you. Let's go back to that agenda. And yes, those ending meeting notes. Number 1, review the tasks that our team completed and decisions made.
Okay, I think the biggest decision that we made was talking about how, with our Google form assessments, how we were planning on doing those on Thursdays and presenting it on Fridays, or Fridays, Mondays, and presenting the scores back to the students as well, so they can get that feedback almost immediately, and then they can even start doing they could start addressing their misconceptions on their own, and then before leading to a classroom discussion. Kind of add to that transparency.
Okay. Sounds good. And then just going back to the beginning, making sure that we do those next steps for our ITI behavior cards.
Mm-hmm. Which I'll definitely be checking in with my student and just kind of seeing how things are at home and everything like that too.
Yes.
And if you need help with the commitment statements, I can come in.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And
Help
then,
you
would
with
be
that.
awesome.
and then did we say we're just going to continue giving these CFAs with Google form?
I think I would also like kind of like what Sylvia had mentioned. I would like to kind of test and see too if we can kind of replicate those same results with the Google form as far as our kids doing better, or like our scores being what they were. See again if the kids respond in a similar way to a different one.
And then having it available for them to be able to highlight those answers
Yep.
in their
Yes.
passage.
And have them like force a copy of it. And
Yes.
then they have their own copy that you
Yep.
highlight.
Yep.
And then they wouldn't have to see all the
All the
students
people on there.
On there,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
They would just see their own.
There's
And
lots.
That's
there-
easy to do.
Yeah, there's lots of
Yeah.
ways we can do that. My only question involving the Google Forms would be, would we look at maybe doing math that way too?
I was thinking about that, and we can talk about that more
Okay.
later. But that is a thought that I feel like we should think about.
I think it would be,
Let's make sure.
provide a different medium.
Mhm.
Let me just go ahead and write it down where it says brainstorm next topics for next meeting.
Oh, thank
I'll
you.
just go ahead and make sure before I forget.
Mm-hmm.
CFA Google form. And
Question mark.
then the next question was number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Clarify team members' responsibility to accomplish before the next meeting.
Okay. I mean, obviously,
I think it was just the
Oh.
RTI.
yeah, checking in with
RTI.
our each teacher,
Mhm.
check in with their respective students.
Yes, and counselors
Mhm.
and administrators
And mentors, right?
and mentors.
Counselors, administrators, and mentors.
Mm.
And then next, evaluate the meeting's effectiveness.
Okay. I mean, I feel like it was a very effective meeting. I feel like we got everything done on our agenda that we needed to, and I feel like we definitely
we got through
clarified.
everything.
We were able to talk about our data protocol, our math protocol.
So-
Sounds good. Yeah, the only thing I want to make sure, whether we do it another time or for our next CTM, maybe we can place it number 1. It's that video.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
the
flip
flip
grid.
grid. Yes,
we need
you're
to
right.
go over flip
Yes.
grid. So
So
And
I'll
I can help you guys.
yeah, let's
So
try.
I'll just type in making it maybe first in our
Yeah.
agenda.
Or is there some time do you think that we may have before next week's CTM that we could
Maybe on Monday,
maybe on
if you guys
Monday?
have time.
And if you let me know when I can come into your classroom and help when you're teaching the kids how to do that.
And my kids actually have already used it.
Okay, good. So yours
but-
already know.
Yeah,
They-
no, I haven't used it yet.
And they enjoyed it.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. I mean, I'm excited about giving them
Yes.
that.
And then
Just-
the last one is number 4, brainstorm a list of topics to include on the next meeting. So we have Math CFA as a Google form.
I'll put in flip grid.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
I mean,
Celebration.
yeah, that's right. It's celebration time.
Yes, we need celebration.
Okay.
So,
Oh.
Does anyone have
For you.
a marker or?
yep, I think.
We finalized our math proficiency levels.
Yes. And that's a big accomplishment
It
because we did
is.
that for reading.
Mhm.
And so now
Now we
we
have
did that
both
for
of them.
math. Yes, now we have both.
Now we know what it's gonna look like when our students are have
Working
completed this. Yes.
with their, according to their proficiency level.
Good job, team.
Yay.
Yay.
While he's writing that, is there anything else that we want to add for our
For next week's agenda?
next week's agenda? According to schedule, we have our
ACT Aspire is next week
Oh, yeah.
for 2 days.
yes, we
Don't
do
forget
have
about that.
ACT Aspire.
Mhm.
And then I think Angie is coming Monday,
Okay.
I think.
Yes, I think
So it'll be a
you're
busy
right.
week.
Yes, it will.
Oh, and then also we have a leadership meeting this Friday with David. If there's anything if there's any questions regarding CTM or any questions you feel like you want to ask David or something, you can always let me or Sylvia know, and we
Okay.
could bring those up too.
Yeah,
Thank you for
definitely.
reminding us.
Okay.
Proficiency levels
Sounds
are
good,
complete.
right?
Making progress.
Trying to think if there's anything else. Next meeting.
We'll add it
Oh,
to
yes,
the
I know.
agenda.
Maybe look at those other resources that were shared.
Oh yes, the ones that Mr. Bay shared with us.
Yes. I'm gonna write that down.
Alright, and we are 2 minutes to 2:30. Okay.
It's a wrap.